My name is Million, aka the Don. Some people call me Don Millie. My real name is Jamil Morris. I'm from Chicago, which is aka Shy Wendy. This is my wife here. What's poppin'?
Well, first you start with the idea that America is a culture and a nation that's built on an informed public. And we function only if we are informed. If we're informed incorrectly, we'll act incorrectly. And so the accuracy of what's reported is very, very important. Also, the amount to be reported helps the people be educated. And so there's a certain role, an important role for the media.
All right, so what we're trying to figure out is, do you think that the newspapers and the media tell us the truth about what's happening?
Nah, it's all bullshit.
No, bullshit.
My dad works in the airport, so I know it's all bullshit. They don't tell you half of what's going on.
Why not?
I don't know. They just don't want us to know.
Because they're trying to protect people.
Well, you know, life is unsustainable without lubrication by lies. You know, I mean, we know that in our own everyday lives. The truth is often hurtful. It very often directly inspires violence. So actually, you know, we always need to protect ourselves from the ill effects of the truth.
The public is, especially the American public, is totally insane. And if we were to find out some of the things the government is really doing, then it'd be mayhem.
Dan Rather, who was on my program in Britain, Newsnight, speaking to another reporter, he said, if I were to ask the tough questions I know I should ask, I would be lynched as unpatriotic. That's Dan Rather. If Dan Rather is shaken in his shorts, imagine the other reporters who think that they ought to ask a couple questions. Now, most of them, by the way, don't feel constrained, because what's coming out of the journalism schools are now kind of guys who learn how to bleach their teeth and, you know, wear their toupees. I'm not going to wear a cat pelt. I'm sorry, not for me. And they've learned how to smile and look at the camera and talk in a very serious voice and say, the president has just gotten on his helicopter and waved at us. Well, I don't give a fuck about the president getting on his fucking helicopter, okay? Let's put it in straight terms. That's not the news. They've learned how to rewrite press releases. We don't have reporters, we have repeaters. They've learned how to go to press conferences and take down what they've been told to take down. And that's the news.
I mean, a lot of the time here, media sort of gauges public opinion rather than seeks to inform it, where I think maybe British people think that the American media maybe has the opposite effect. You know, it's a tool to create public opinion rather than actually gauge it.
I think one big crucial difference is this. I think that American society is fantastic at scrutinizing big public events where they've gone wrong. The obvious example is Watergate. But strangely enough, I think on everyday affairs, the press, and in particular television, are really quite deferential to the office of the president and the 4 or 5 key advisors and key people around him, in a way that simply doesn't happen in Britain. And interestingly enough, when we came to doing interview bids for at the start of the war, we found it quite difficult to persuade senior members of the administration to talk to us. And even though, you know, in Britain we were the one other country in the rest of the world that was kind of, you know, on side with America, they saw the BBC as almost too challenging and almost a bit kind of nasty in a way it was actually going to phrase its questions. And when Donald Rumsfeld did an interview with David Dimbleby, who's the senior BBC interviewer, he walked off set instantly. The whole thing was finished and was really angry, almost of how dare you speak to me like that. And yet in British terms it had been quite a decent, almost low-key interview. You just don't speak to members of the administration like that.
Media is a very important thing, because at the end of the day, the media is kind of like the filter from, well, not the filter, the link between the high position and the people. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think things have changed. You know, countries go through different periods, of openness and all the rest of it. And I think that the 70s and 80s were a much more open time in the States. And it's no accident in the sense that a lot of people, I think, came back to Europe and stuff.
Right.
You know? Because it was just a profoundly depressing period, I think, in terms of from Florida on, you know? And frankly, I'm amazed, you know, having kind of been through the sort of 60s and 70s and with all those hopes and aspirations, one never imagined in one's lifetime that one would see such a big swing of the pendulum, I think, where all those cherished freedoms, you know, like freedom of the press, press objectivity, all that sort of thing, civil rights, human rights that were all fought for, should be overturned and compromised in such a short period of time.
So can you give an example of something that like happened recently that if we'd known about it, we would all freak out?
The plane that went down in Pennsylvania, they said they were a hero. Like, let's roll, and the guys mashed it to the ground, but now they're saying the Air Force shot it down. And they wanted to make people out to be heroes when they were really just victims of the Air Force shooting them down.
So what do you think happened?
I think the Air Force shot them down.
All right. Why do you think that?
Because it's more logical.
I gathered all the information I could and you know, quickly learned that there were a lot of things about the crash of Flight 93 that didn't really add up right away. The fact that debris fell on this lake a couple miles away at the same time that the plane was crashing, the fact that some lighter pieces of debris that definitely came from the plane, like mail that was in the cargo section, blew as far as 8 or 9 miles away. And if you look at the pictures from that day, it was not an incredibly windy day. I mean, that's the official explanation, but it's certainly an explanation that's worth questioning. I also learned quickly that a number of people who were in Shanksville that day saw a second aircraft, which, you know, I mean that alone should raise huge questions about what was going on. You know, it was a very contradictory picture out there.
It means different things to different people. I noticed this morning several ladies crying again, and they'll cry the whole time they're here. And then you'll see people that just come in and take a quick look and it satisfies them. Sure, there's stories like that floating around. That doesn't bother us, it doesn't bother the family people. We still say they done it, and we will always say that, regardless of, yeah, I've heard the plane was shot down. No, it wasn't. The word that we got, that the fighter planes that were sent to shoot it down were at least 2 minutes away from Shanksville when it crashed.